how would we be able to identify it if we don't know it? You have to know love in order to experience it, identify it, define it. You have to know it. You have to have given it, right? Because love is reciprocal, I would say. But you have to have been vulnerable enough and open enough to give love so that you can receive it and therefore identify its many facets.
This is the Lorraine Journey Podcast on the McKissick Health Podcast Network. I'm Dr. Sherella Cupid, your host.
The Lorraine Journey Podcast is a space for Black women to choose themselves.
Welcome back, sisters, sponsors, and supporters of the Lorraine Journey Podcast. For the 4th season, the theme is transitions. We will continue the sister circle conversations with Black women from different stages of life with various personal, community, and professional roles. The intention of this season is to continue and start conversations on the meanings, experiences, and practices around transitions, such as becoming a mom, shifting careers, and establishing a new lifestyle. Thank you for being a part of the Lorraine Journey community, because Lorraine means love is real and eternal. So sis, let's practice love. So today I'm really excited for this conversation with Dr. Inte'a Deshields. I remember one distinct conversation we had during our doctoral training about the need for us to have, as they say, kitchen talk conversations about what does it mean to be a Black woman in this space. I've always admired the way she shows up, whether or not that's as a mother, an artist, a business owner. So please, sis, can you introduce yourself in a couple of sentences?
Sure. Peace, Dr. Cupid. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Inte'a Deshields, Baltimore girl, mother, and I'm happy to be here. I feel like there's so much I could say, and so less is better.
I know you'll be dropping gems as we continue on this conversation. So speaking of this conversation, can you share what brings you to this sister circle space?
Well, I had the pleasure of running into you after several years of, being online on social media and seeing each other, but running into you in person, you and Dr. Shante Stocks. And so after seeing you in person, we said, look, we need to get together. And sometimes that invitation can be empty. But I wanted to make sure that it happened. And so when I heard from you, I said, absolutely. This is an opportunity for us to connect and to build the way we did when we were in our program together. Life happens, and it's so easy to just kind of, keep moving on. But the desire to be intentional about connecting is what brings me here today.
Thank you. So in regards to being intentional and connecting, if you could name the season of your life, what title would you give it and why?
This season of my life, and this is going to sound so cliche, becoming, not Michelle Obama's becoming, but my own becoming. But I would give the title of becoming. I feel like I am in a new stage of career development, I feel like I've unlocked a new level of motherhood and partnership. I feel like I've unlocked new interests at this stage of my life. And so I'm becoming what in my spiritual system, my Ori, what my Ori, what the universe has put me here to become.
Thank you. And can you share a little bit about what does Ori mean?
Sure. So Ori in the Ifa system, and I am not an initiated priest, priestess, but in the system of Ifa, your Ori means your head. And Ori is that which is internal. It is your guiding Orisha, your guiding spiritual self. And it is what you come to, what you come into being with and what you leave with. It is your original spiritual connection. And so your Ori guides you. You hear people say sometimes, listen to your mother wit. Your mother wit is your Ori, that internal voice, that internal God or goddess that guides us in everything that we do.
Thank you. I appreciate the definition and explanation. It's my first time hearing about it. So, in thinking about this season of you becoming, how are you defining love?
Love is a reflection. Love is what I see, how I perceive other people is what I am identifying as what I see in myself. And if I can see love, authenticity in people, then it means that I see a reflection of myself. And so love to me is a reflection. And I will say, when I was younger, I wrote a poem. I used to be a poet many years ago. I even did stand-up poetry at Larry Stewart's. So for those people in Baltimore who remember old Baltimore, they'll remember Larry Stewart's. But I wrote a poem a long time ago, and the premise of the poem was that love does not love anybody. And in my younger years, it was because I believe that love is something that people do, but that love cannot feel. And I guess in some ways I still believe that, but more than that now, I would build it out to say that love is not just something that you do, that love is a reflection. And so if you cannot identify love, if you cannot see love in the things that people are doing, if you cannot feel love in how people hug you or how people greet you, then it is in some ways a reflection of where you are in your spiritual or your emotional state. And so that's why I would say that at this stage in my life, love is a reflection.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. So you really have to be in a state of self-reflection and self-awareness when we think about love.
How would we be able to identify it if we don't know it? You have to know love in order to experience it, identify it, define it. You have to know it. You have to have given it, right? Because love is reciprocal, I would say. But you have to have been vulnerable enough and open enough to give love so that you can receive it and therefore identify its many facets.
Thank you. So in your introduction, you talked about being a mom. So when we think about motherhood, would you consider yourself to be a millennial mom? And if so, what does that mean for you?
I don't think technically I'm on the cusp
Okay.
of being a millennial mom. I had my daughter at what they call advanced maternity. So I was beyond the years of what they say is supposed to be your most viable years for pregnancy. I will say that once my husband and I committed to becoming parents, it happened like that. No time at all. So whatever they say about advanced maternity age was not true in my case. But all that to say that technically I'm not a millennial mom by age. However, and that's only because, again, I'm on the cusp. But millennial mom, how do you define millennial mom? And then I think I'll be able to better answer the question.
So I can tell you what other sisters have said in regards to them being millennial moms.
Okay.
And also, I would say that everyone who I've been in conversation with so far are quote unquote had their children in advanced maternal age. So for them, they talked about a lot about being self-aware about mental health now. I think when we think about the millennial generation as being more open about this conversation about mental health and mental wellness, they also talked about having children later and it establishing a different type of patience that they don't think they would have had if they had their children earlier in life. And then also wanted to be present and creating a life where they could be present mothers. So I would say those are some of the points that came up.
So in a nutshell, yes. Yes, I am a millennial mom. So patience, I would say that I am generally a patient person. I can navigate people and personalities pretty well, and I exercise, I think, a pretty decent level. I won't say a high level of patience, but a decent level of patience with a range of people. And so with my daughter, and even with friends and family, I would say patience is absolutely there. When I was younger, I think even had I had her when I was younger, I think patience would still be just a natural part of who I am. Mental health is, so this is going to be taboo, I think, in this age of millennial motherhood and parenting. I don't see a therapist. And I know it's so funny because at one point, if you said you do see a therapist, it would have been like, oh, taboo. But I don't see a therapist, and I understand how that might shock people. But nevertheless, I am well aware of the need for mental health. And for me, though I don't go the route of therapy, I do go the route of making sure that I listen with my daughter and myself, that if it seems to me that she needs a break, I give her a break because she's involved in a lot of activities. And all of her activities is connected to that idea of being present. I'm very, very much present for her and all of the things that she's involved in. But on the side of mental health, again, I listen. So if it's, if I can see that she is tired, I mean, really tired, not just kind of whiny, I need a nap, I listen to that. I listen to the bits of stress or nervousness she might be expressing regarding a test or anything like that. So I think a level of awareness that comes from even listening to myself and awareness about myself and how I show up, how I react to stress, allows me to see her and recognize those characteristics in her so that I can make sure that I'm not putting any unnecessary stress on my child. So patience is there, self-awareness and therefore awareness of her and how she's feeling is definitely a part of it. I would say more than how I was raised, there's a greater level of communication. So my mother and father, I wouldn't say that they didn't listen, but there was, if in my recollections of childhood, there wasn't a whole lot of, so how do you feel about this? Or what do you think about this? Or, just the answers to, what does this mean? What is that? So I think that there's a higher level of communication with her now as a millennial, I guess as a millennial mom, a mother of advanced age, that I do encourage communication. And I tell her often, use your words, right? Use your words. Tell me what you mean. Tell me what you're feeling so that you're not bottling things up. Because we know that if you repress your emotions long enough, they'll eventually explode. What we don't want is an emotional mess. And I guess even if you become an emotional mess, at least be able to communicate about what's happening after you go through whatever breakdown you might have. So, patience, awareness, communication, and yes, being present. I will say that part of being present is, and I don't know, I guess this would be a millennial mom thing. I believe that an idle mind is, as the elders say, the devil's playground. So my daughter is active. She is involved in a lot of cultural activities. And in order to be involved in those cultural activities, it means that we have to be present too. And so we spend a lot of time in the dance studio, in the car, waiting outside of the dance studio. We spend a lot of time taking her to cultural events, making sure that she's in spaces and around people who are fun, but also offer the kind of cultural reinforcement that's important to us. So
this episode of the Lorraine Journey podcast is sponsored by Left on Red. Left on Red, founded by Dr. Latasha Ely Kelly, is a specialty bookstore and cultural space rooted in the mission to amplify representation, cultivate perspective, and empower community. With a focus on titles by Black authors and works of African American interests, the curated collection spans a range of genres and lived experiences, alongside thoughtfully selected stationery, keepsakes, and collectibles that reflect Black culture. Left on Red also hosts events, workshops, and programs that connect literature to everyday life, learning, and well-being. As the home of the Millennial Black Professor and TMBP Media, Left on Red expands beyond the page through podcasting, storytelling, and creative media initiatives that honor underrepresented narratives and foster meaningful dialogue. This space exists to serve, support, and shift, offering both inspiration and intention for anyone seeking reflection, knowledge, and community. You can support Left on Red by visiting leftonredbooks.com. Again, that's leftonredbooks.com, or visiting the bookstore in Wichita, Kansas. Again, thank you, Left on Red, for sponsoring the Lorraine Journey podcast.
yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that overview. You compared reflection on your childhood and how you were mothering. So now that you are a mother, has the relationship with your mother changed? Or do you look at your mother differently now that you have become a mom?
So My mother is like my best friend. So I've always been close to my mother. I spoke to my dad today, so I talk to my parents often. But I think I've always admired and loved, just, I wouldn't even admire, I've just always loved my mother. Like she's a queen to me. And I adore her. And I think that also with whatever things I may have been upset about when I was a little girl, I can't think of those things anymore. Like there was nothing so heinous or traumatizing that it stuck with me. To the extent that I can't see her in her fullness now. Right? There are absolutely things that that happened as a child where I'm like, I remember that. Or, I remember these things, but nothing to the point that it has prevented me from seeing her. Understanding that, she's not perfect, but still being able to love her for who she is. So I go shopping with my mom, the three of us, my mommy, my daughter, and myself. We go shopping, we hang out, family get-togethers and parties. So my mother's she's an integral part of my life and my daughter's life, very much so.
So with your mom being your queen and you having that intimacy with your mom and your daughter and that being a part of your community, was there a conversation that you had with your mother that enlightened you about your journey as a mom?
We've had so many conversations over the years. I know that my mother, so I don't know, I never got a chance to meet my grandmother, my mother's mother, because she was in an abusive relationship and she had cancer. She had breast cancer. And so she died. My grandmother had already transitioned by the time she was 42. So I think she transitioned at 42. She was young. I'm gratefully, by grace, I'm over 42 years old. And so having that conversation, that kind of transparency with my mother, not keeping, how there are sometimes family secrets. The ugly was shared early. And the ugly was shared early so that my mother could protect us, so that my mother and father could protect us. And so that I could, when the time came, because I wasn't sure if I would have a child. I wasn't, I was for a long time sold on being a bachelorette. I was totally fine with it. Until my mind was changed. But she, that the kind of transparency that allows you to know your family history is something that I appreciate about my mother, that she didn't hold secrets. And because she didn't hold those secrets, I feel like it's allowed for a level of trust and the kind of transparency that I know with my daughter, as she gets older, I plan to have the same kind of transparency with her, to just share whatever, whatever the family history might be, that you need to know it, because the last thing we can afford to do as a family, and especially as a Black family, is hold secrets that become that really act more to tear us down and tear us apart than to build us up and hold us together. So for my mother, the conversations happened early, to protect. No, you can't stay over at just anybody's house. No. No, you can't just go hanging out with just anybody. No. The questions that encourage discernment. What do you know about them? What did they do when they saw this happen? Right. So those the kind of conversations that, again, encourage a young mind to think, and to think on a level that allows you to see the things that aren't being said, and or to hear the things that aren't being said, and to see the things that aren't being shown, is what I got from my mother. And it came from my father as well, but I know that this conversation is focused on motherhood. But there is balance in it all. And so what I did not get from my mother, I got from my father. And I can say that kind of balance in my life was invaluable, for sure. But conversations that came with transparency, asking my mother questions about my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and her willingness to share and not hold back, I think are all of the things that have made, that allowed me to just see her even more clearly.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think we often had added that we should see children but not hear them, which I think does a great detriment to any community, right? We could think about, like you said, like you won't go over that person's house, or what do you know about that person? But if you're telling a child to practice silence, why and how would they come to you? God forbid something happens that's traumatizing, right? So it's beautiful to hear that your parents practice transparency, so that way now as a mother you can practice communication and asking those questions. So we can see the ways in which generationally it helps us to have the level of intimacy of let's build each other up rather than repeating patterns that aren't helpful. Yeah. You talked about as well being a mother at quote unquote advanced maternal age. Was there any information that you received that was helpful for you in your pregnancy journey?
Anyone who's been pregnant knows that you receive a whole lot of unsolicited advice.
Mm.
But the best advice I received came from someone. I was in Whole Foods, and someone just happened to be in the aisle with me. And they looked at me and they said, "Congratulations." I said, "Thank you so much." And they said, "If no one tells you anything else, just remember, the days are long, but the years are short." And I received it. And I think I was in a space to receive what they said and not feel, upset or offended by someone, giving me advice about pregnancy or parenting. But it was the best advice I received, because, and it's something that I share with people all the time. The days are long because they are. I mean, even now, my daughter is 8.5 and busy, and in that space of little attitude. So much so that sometimes I'm like, whose child is this? Where is this coming from? Other times where I have to say, hold up, tone it down, so, but so the days are long in infancy, you lose sleep, but the years fly by. And it's, I cherish sometimes, on with people being on social media, I am so slow to post on social media because I cherish the photos I take. And I almost feel like if I share them, people get to see this beautiful, intimate part of my life. And so I'm usually very slow to post things, because the days are long, but the years are short. And I do my best to cherish it. And I think also, but because I am considered older for a mother of an 8-year, I mean, I have one of my daughter's classmates' mother is a former student of mine. Former college student. So I'm not talking, elementary, like a former college student of mine. So this is, yeah. So just to consider that there are people who are significantly younger than me who have children the same age as mine, also makes me value the day. It makes me value time in a different way, I think, because I do recognize that I'm older, and aging is a blessing. It truly is a blessing. So I'm not saying that to say that I'm old, but to say I'm seasoned. And there is an advantage to being seasoned, and to be seasoned in parenting, at the same time. I think just it allows for a different way of engaging your child. It allows you to have a different way of engaging trends and, the things that are that seem to be popular and of interest. It allows for the imparting of a different generation of wisdom. And so, yeah, the advice: the days are long, the years are short. That's the advice I received.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to transition to the conversation in regards to your career. So can you share a little bit background in regards to your career field? Like, where are you? I know you also as a business owner. So can you share in regards to your career field, or fields, I should say, actually?
Appropriate. So I am in this stage of becoming, as I said, the title of this stage of my life. I am an assistant professor of English and language arts at a historically Black institution. I am also a business owner. I own City Noir, which is currently an online boutique that specializes in culturally chic accessories and apparel. So I started with so earrings are like one of my things. I love earrings.
Beautiful.
And people who see me, if you see no other piece of jewelry, I mean, you'll always see jewelry, but if you see no other piece of jewelry, there will be a statement earring as part of my look, whether it is sweatpants or a gown, there will be a statement earring. I am So, and the reason I say at this stage in my life, because there was a period of time when I was solely a business owner, and I had a storefront, and I was a doctoral student turned candidate. But my primary career at the time was being an entrepreneur. And so there were shifts or pivots, but I've always held on to my entrepreneurial spirit. When I was in my doctoral studies, I used to tell one of my mentors, who was also one of my dissertation advisors, he would ask me, Lester Spence would ask, so what are you going to do? And I would say, I'm going to be a sociocultural entrepreneur. He was like, what is that? I was like, I don't know, but that's what I'm going to be.
Okay.
So I'm going to be a sociocultural entrepreneur. But I feel like I have done that. Like I've managed to bring my interests together. So in addition to, and this is not a business, but part of my career work is also community organizing. And so I'm one of the co-founders of the Black Running Organization, which is an organization for the Black family to organize and educate along the basis of running as a practical demonstration of unity. And I started that with a few friends. One of those friends ended up becoming my lover and my baby daddy. But he is my lover, my husband, my friend. But we started through running, and we started through running as friends. And so that is another part of my identity where, I still, I don't run as frequently. Motherhood does require shifts and sacrifice. And so for my role in it, my focus is our daughter. So it requires a different, focus and concentration of attention and time. But that's also a part of, again, my career journey. And it's taught me how to organize people, how to connect with a range of people, in addition to being a store owner, being a professor. There are some transferable skills. I can talk to anyone. So career, business owner of Charm City Noir, co-founder and community organizer with the Black Running Organization, assistant professor of English and language arts at a local historically Black institution. And as part of Charm City Noir, an extension of that is my daughter has a store called Joy and Frill. And Joy and Frill focuses on girls' accessories. So she sells embellished hats, hair bows, embellished hair bows, and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, wow, beautiful. So as a professor, a business owner, an organizer, a sociocultural entrepreneur, as you stated, how do you navigate all of those roles while also being a mom? You mentioned that you had to take some shifts. So what does that look like for you?
So for me, it means that I went from having a storefront. I still own the space, but I use it for online shipping. And I'll go back a bit. So just around the time that I started my doctoral studies, I was a lecturer, but I had a desire, because I had always been entrepreneurial. I had a desire to open a store. And so I left being a lecturer to opening a storefront. And I opened that storefront with my mother. As I said before, my mother is my best friend. So I opened the storefront with my mother. And then I pursued my doctoral studies. And then towards the end of my doctoral studies, I already had a 2-year-old. And I shifted from that point, from having the storefront full time to pursuing a career in higher education, but still maintaining the storefront. And so everything is kind of, I think juggling is a big part of what it means to be a mother for me. You have to juggle and then figure out which ball are you going to keep in the air and which one are you just going to kind of hold in place for the moment. And so I decided that I would pivot with my store. And so I pivoted with the store. I closed the storefront so that I could focus a little more on the career in higher education, being tenure track, pursuing all of the requirements that come with that. But still, of course, having that entrepreneurial spirit means you can't let it go fully. But as my career took more and more of my time and attention, and being a mother required more and more of my time and attention, I did decide to let the store rest a little. So there are sometimes highs and lows in the activity of my online store. One season will be very active and, high engagement, and then another season might be very low because it requires strategic balancing. I think the biggest lesson I've learned over the last 8.5 years is to be okay with not trying to do it all. Because, and this is a proverb that I learned from a sister just recently, you cannot set yourself on fire to warm the village. Can't sacrifice yourself for the sake of keeping everything else or everyone else afloat. And so that proverb just kind of brought it all together for me to say, yeah, Inte'a, that is exactly what I think I intuitively knew I had to do. And that is, don't try to do it all. You have to be willing to let some things rest. You don't have to give it up completely, but to just let some things rest so you can do this other thing or give this other thing the attention that it needs right now.
Hey, you can join the Lil Ray Journey communities through a couple of ways. First, be sure to go to podcast.mckinseyhelp.com and sign up for the Lil Ray Journey newsletter. This way, every time I drop a new issue, you are in the in. From what I'm listening to what I'm reading, to latest blog entries. Again, you can go to podcast.mckinseyhelp.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Lil Ray Journey. In addition to the podcast, you will see my reflections on how I am navigating life centered in wellness, such as moving, the hashtag 75 Soft Challenge, and so much more. So be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share, and join the conversation in the comments. And of course, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, using the handle at Lil Ray Journey. Lastly, if you are a bookie, you can find me in the Fable app and also in Blue Sky. Looking forward to being in touch with you in the interwebs. As always, love is real and eternal. In community, peace.
And so that's where I've been with my career. I enjoy what I do. Actually, I love what I do. I can't lie. I love what I do. I love that I have the opportunity to work with, right now my students are 99% of African descent from throughout the diaspora. I think that is an honor and privilege, and I don't take for granted the importance or even the weight that comes with having those minds in my hands. And so I take the role of being an assistant professor at a historically Black institution very seriously. And I cherish the fact that I have the privilege to even be there. So I love what I do. But I love being an entrepreneur. And sometimes I miss having a storefront so much, because having a storefront gives you a window into the lives of so many people. It allows you to connect with people you would never imagine, connecting with. It also allows you to sharpen your skills on how to navigate those who need to be checked or watched. But it really does, it sharpens your people skills in a way that I don't think any other career field really could. All that to say that my career is varied, but my primary focus right now is assistant professorship and motherhood.
Thank you. So when you shifted to being a full-time professor, did you have a mentor to give you any useful information about shifting?
Yes. I stayed in contact with one of my professors from undergrad. And I would say mentoring is something that if you've never been a mentor, give somebody the opportunity of being your mentee. Is all I can say, so that you can bring someone into the spaces you've managed to find your way into. Because we can't stay there forever, right? Being a mentor means that you are making sure that someone can fill that space when you've moved on, whether it is moving on to a higher position, moving on to another institution, or even, when we do finally transition, that you impart on someone the wisdom, the information, the knowledge, the skills that you have, so that somebody can come in and carry on your legacy. And so mentoring is, I believe, I believe it's a necessity, especially for Black folks to have a mentee, no matter what stage of our careers we're in. But I stayed in contact with all of my professors, actually, almost all of them from undergrad. I was invited to I was invited to be a judge for forensics when I was in graduate school. I competed on the forensics team as an undergraduate. I was a member of Pi Kappa Delta honorary speech fraternity. And so the connections I made from being in that speech fraternity and being a forensicator, as we would call ourselves, meant that when it came time for them to call on someone, they would call on me. And that's how I found my way into higher education. I never intended to be in education, actually, at all. I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I never imagined myself in education. I was working in publishing at the time that I was invited to be a full-time lecturer and coach for the forensics team at my alma mater. And I haven't said my alma mater, but my alma mater is Morgan State University. And that is also where I have the honor and privilege of being an assistant professor. And so I was invited to coach forensics and to lecture at Morgan. And that was on invitation of my former professors. And from there, I worked in the department I graduated from. I developed relationships across the institution. I left for several years to pursue my PhD, which is where I had the honor of meeting you. And I was invited back again on invitation because I had relationships, and I was invited to join a different department, but it was because of the relationships I had built over time. and specifically my mentor. So you think about people who will bring your name up even when you're not in the room. That is what a mentor, right? A mentor turned sponsor will do, right? Someone who believes in you, someone who believes in your skill set, so that when people say, you know, we're looking for someone to do this, they can say, you know, I know who you need. I know who can do that. And so that is what my mentor, Dr. Laura Dorsey Elson, has been for me. And I have many, I don't have just one, but I would say as far as the one who has shown me, who has demonstrated and modeled for me what mentoring is, it has been her. And from our connection during my time as an undergrad to now being a colleague, and I even do workshops on mentoring in higher education. So I've learned, I don't just say what I'm saying lightly. It's something that I also coach and, help other faculty members to develop the skills and ways of becoming an effective mentor.
Thank you. I'm really fortunate to hear that story. I would agree that it's a blessing when you do have mentors and mentor sponsors, because oftentimes, like you said, we didn't see ourselves on this path, but because of that connection, it's like, oh, okay, I can do this. Right. So also in speaking of mentor sponsors and you being a coach for other faculty, what does sisterhood look like in your field?
Sisterhood in my field, sisterhood in my field looks like going from a meeting where there are plenty of people, and when the meeting is over, receiving a phone call, and as soon as you pick it up, you hear, girl. Girl. And that's just the first three things you hear. And again, girl. And you know exactly what they are referring to. So sisterhood means having the kind of conversations that make you say, are we going there? Yes, we're going there. Let's talk about this. It means, as we said before, going in the kitchen. Sometimes you have to sit down at the kitchen table and stretch your arm across that table and have very, very unscripted, truthful, authentic conversations about what is happening, what you're witnessing, what you're observing, what the things that you can't quite make sense of, the things you need to process because it happens so fast and you're trying to figure out, did I read that correctly? What just happened? So I think sisterhood in this space means being able to be truthful about what it is that you're experiencing with someone who can not only empathize with you, but they know. And they can provide some advice and guidance on how to navigate it. Sisterhood in this space means being held accountable too, because sometimes we can think that sisterhood means just going along with the get along because, we identify both as Black women, and sometimes no, sis, what you're doing is not right. And so sisterhood does mean accountability. It means having difficult conversations. It means being able to say to someone, you know, what you just did, that's not us. Being able to identify what is culturally the norm as you understand it. And I know that can be a sticky topic, but for, some level of cultural evenness, that if you know what it is to be a Black woman, you can also read when someone is acting as something else, and being able to call that out, and having someone in a sisterly way respond, you know what, you're right. I don't know what's going on right now. I'm just trying to figure it out. So having those real and honest conversations is what sisterhood looks like in this space. I think it's also sisterhood in this space, and I've been able to benefit from this, is having people encourage you to apply for the things that just weren't on your radar. I'm put here. Look, take a look at this. Oh, you didn't see it? Let me send it to you again. Let me send it to you again. So it is that, that nudge that you didn't know you needed, because somebody sees in you what you don't quite see in yourself yet.
Thank you. I appreciate the both, and like the things that we often talk about, like that understanding, that nonverbal understanding that we often have in regards to these sister circles and sisterhood journeys, but also the ability to call our sis out, to call her in, so that we can continue on. And in speaking about having those honest and authentic conversations, if someone was looking to become a professor, right, who is now a business owner, what suggestions would you give them for that career shift?
If they wanted to transition from being a business owner to being a professor, I would say the first thing is to identify where in higher education you want to be. Is it that you want to be in the classroom? Do you want to teach? And if so, what do you want to teach? But I say that because every institution has, each department is different. The courses they teach are going to vary. The courses you have in mind, you may be able to fit what you have in mind into the courses they already have established, or will you need to go in and propose courses, which is a whole other process. But the first thing I would say is, do you want to teach, or is this something you just kind of want to figure out? If it's something you want to figure out, then I would say go the adjunct route. For adjuncting, it usually means that you are teaching one course at an institution, and it means that you will probably need, if it is at a 4-year institution, you will most likely need a master's degree in order to be an adjunct professor. You can sometimes find an adjunct position with a bachelor's degree at a community college, or for a course that is maybe a developmental or remedial course. But I would say to start with adjuncting so that you can get a feel for classroom management, so that you can get a feel for what it's like to write a syllabus, to get the feel for what it's like to write a course schedule, to think about the big picture of what it is you want your students to walk away with. There is a method called backward design, where you start with the end result. What do you want them to do? And then build, back from there, so you can identify and outline the goals and learning outcomes. So I would say to start with adjuncting, so you can just kind of get a feel for what it's like to do the work. And if you fall in love with it, because, you never know, you may not fall in love with it. You may realize, I don't want to do this at all. Maybe you decide that from that experience, you want to become a researcher. which is a different path. So, and you can transition from being in a career, being an entrepreneur, business owner, to being a researcher as well. It's just a different step. But to be a teacher, start with adjuncting. And if you fall in love with it, then, make connections, reach out to people, the people you meet in the department, ask them as many questions as you can, meet as many people as you can at other institutions as well, so that you can discover the differences between institutions. Most people will be transparent about you, about what they love and what might frustrate them about their respective institutions. And so, get to know people, ask questions, and then determine what type of institution you want to be a professor. Do you want to be at a PWI? Do you want to be at a research institution? Do you want to be at a historically Black institution? Because they all come with a different set of required, I would say, background knowledge, contextual knowledge, and skills that will serve you well when you hit the ground. So determine what kind of institution you want to be at as well.
Thank you. I think that was a great map for someone to use. So, speaking of transparency and connections, what does it look like for you to So, speaking of connections and transparency, what does it look like for you to thrive in this space?
To thrive in the space of my career, or
Yes.
what does it take to thrive in this space? I think flexibility and adaptability. It is, and love. And I say that because, again, I have the privilege of being at a historically Black institution, and it comes with I have a deep dedication to my people. And I want to, kind of skirt it and be very, a little elusive about it, but I can be. I have a deep dedication to my people and the mission of the historically Black institution. And because of that, what helps me to thrive in my role of assistant professor is love. It's the thing that has me show up. It's the thing that helps me to, engage with my students. It is the thing that has my students, either upset because I held them accountable for all of the assignments they didn't do, or, the thing that has them, love me and respect me. I won't say love me because I don't know if they love me, but respect me because they know that Dr. Deshields is going to show up for us. And Dr. Deshields she's going to include in the curriculum that she writes material that reflects our interests. And even if we're reading Frankenstein, I know that she's going to make some connection to the Black experience. Yes, right? So I think that what helps me thrive is that I bring myself to my work. I don't have to, and this is by grace, I would say, I don't have to cut off my arm so that I can show up to be whatever my workspace needs me to be. I can show up in my fullness with my curly hair. I can show up with all of my style and my flair. I love to see my colleagues show up in their Ankara, their mud cloth. I love that at my institution, we start every convocation with lift every voice and sing. Like that kind of that kind of cultural identity is embedded not only in the institution, but it's what I show up with as well. And I think that that is what helps me thrive in my space, that my colleagues also know, you know, what you get with Dr. Deshields is someone who's committed to the mission of the university and committed to the mission, or committed to the students and wanting to make sure that the students here receive the best education they can. And so, yeah, I think that's what helps me thrive, just showing up authentically, being
Thank you.
culturally centered.
Thank you. So, in showing up authentically as a professor, you uplifted the many roles that you have, right? The many roles that you said, juggling, balancing, a mother, a wife, a daughter, a business owner, a professor, an organizer. Considering your primary roles, what is a reminder to yourself to feel grounded?
Find it to myself to feel grounded. I think my reminder to feel grounded, to stay grounded, is right. So, and there's another picture right behind it. But it's them. They, whenever I feel, because it's easy to kind of get lost in the work, the expectations. And when I say, all of the beautiful parts about my career and, juggling these different roles, it's not easy. There are times when I feel like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And I think there are some things that I didn't share about, other roles that I have in the community in Baltimore, but it's not easy. And when I do need to step back and just kind of ground myself, I think about them. That, especially my daughter, if I collapse trying to stress myself out to get this work done, who will it be for? Because it won't be for her. Right? It won't be for her. It would be for the sake of whatever the expectations are for an institution, for, a supervisor, for some deadline. And it's not to say that I would ignore those things, but when I know that I need to pull myself back and be seated and centered in what matters most, that's where I go. And that's why I keep those pictures right there, so that when I do find myself just staring at, I'm like, oh my God, just one more word. And I look, you know what, take a break. Let that be the thing that keeps you centered and not go too far off into the ethers of work and perceived external responsibilities. It's all right here.
Thank you. So this sister circle community is named Luray Journey. What Luray mean in love is real and eternal. What is your understanding of love being real and eternal?
Love is real and eternal. Love is real and eternal as a reflection It means that I, in love, can never die. It means that when I do become an ancestor, that the love that I've been able to share with people, the love I've been able to receive and give, imparts some long lasting, eternal impact on this world. And so that is what love is, real and eternal means. That's my understanding of it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The ways in which who we are become legacy. So to be mindful of that. So Dr. Deshields, you mentioned many roles throughout this conversation and the fact that you are mindful to be present in the moment before sharing on social media. If you have any public platforms where folks can find you, may you please share your social media?
Sure, you can find me publicly at Charm City Noir. That's on Instagram at Charm City Noir. You can also find me publicly on Facebook at Charm City Noir.
Thank you. Now, quick question. Is your running group open or how do folks?
Sure. So you can find Black Running Organization on Instagram at BLKRUNORG. And again, Black Running Organization is open to the Black family, Black man, woman, and child. Okay, all running levels welcome.
Okay, even the walkers?
Well, you still gotta chop it out.
Okay.
Chop it out.
Understood. Okay, excellent. So are you currently providing any services or when can folks expect in regards to your business? You said that sometimes you have high seasons, sometimes you scale back. Like, can you share a little bit more about that?
My family celebrates Kwanzaa, and it's our favorite time of year. And so my high season this year, or in 2024, was the Kanara holiday post. And so this was created from scratch by me. Each pair of earrings is stamped with CCN so that you know that it's an original piece. But I am an artist as well. Earring designer. I used to make jewelry, body chains, and waist beads and earrings. I used to make a lot of things by hand, but I ventured into designing with alloy metal. So this is this was part of the high season from 2024. And I plan to do a little more designing. I enjoy the process of sourcing the material, finding buyers, the highs and lows of finding stores that would stock it and hearing the no's. So I enjoy that process. And so I think your question was, what can they find or what service do I have? Right now, it is the Kwanzaa,
Beautiful.
the Kanara holiday post. And so I say in Nguzo Saba 365, the 7 principles are not limited to the 7 days of Kwanzaa from December 26th to January 1st. We can practice the seven principles 365 days of the year. And these earrings can be a part of that expression of cultural alignment. So that's where we are.
Indeed. Good to know. Okay. Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, sis.
Thank you for asking so that I have a chance to share because, sometimes when you do a lot of things, it's easy to forget.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's good to know. So now I can potentially connect you with other sisters who are business owners to say, hey, I have this, we have this earrings. So It's a note to self. So thank you for sharing. So thank you again, sis, for sharing your journey and reflections on love during this season. And as always, love is real and eternal. In community, peace.
Hey, Luray Journey community supporter. You can follow the community by following the handle at Luray Journey on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Also, be sure to leave comments on Spotify, YouTube, and follow wherever you're listening or watching the podcast. For those who are part of the book club or love to discuss books and movies, you can follow me at Sherella Cupid on the Fable app. Lastly, you can go to podcast.mckidsofhealth.com to sign up for the newsletter. There, you'll receive updates such as new episode drops, events, and so much more. Again, go to podcast.mckidsofhealth.com. And as always, love is real and eternal. In community, peace.